Don't you want devoted followers who leave their families for you, give their money to you, give their bodies to you, give up their lives for you? Don't you want to become a cult leader? Since the death of God, there's been a vacancy opened. You could fill that void. Here's how. Structure your cult like an onion with the most benign and helpful features on the outside and the most controlling, kooky, and evil parts at the secret inner core. Use deception. Don't tell them who you really are. Lie. Leave out important information or distort information.
Okay, so why are the police trying to like fucking mace us and shit, bro? Mace us in the eyes and shit. Weinstein came out of the D building after receiving reports of the students' plans, attempting to block the students from entering the building.
He came out to us. We were all gathered outside. He opened the door and said, hey, what's going on? Because my students already told me what's going on pretty much.
For transparency, we did block him at first. He was trying to leave, but however, we didn't.
Establish front groups.
Have you read it yourself? Are you sure that's what it
I've read
said?
excerpts of it because my class is actually making a documentary that has that in it.
Who's your professor?
Naima.
I have a phrase called Black Girl in the Wilderness, right? Sort of to describe this profound isolation we feel as these sort of unruly, loudmouth women with like the wrong hair and a lot of attitude.
Promise to fulfill their dreams.
We can create a more equitable and just community at Evergreen. Our students, you, our students, will be the ones who work to close the divisions in our country and create a more equitable and just society.
You can tell them time is running out and that they must make their decision now or it will be too late.
Institutional change is slow here.
Oh!
Whether it's slow or not, the change is going to happen now. You can see that everybody's ready for it. So slow as in 20 years or so, you still have the ability to make impact today. Why wait another 20 years?
Don't give them time to think. Diminish doubting commiseration by separating your new recruits from each other. Surround them with happy, true believers, so when in doubt, they will tend to do what everyone around them is doing and believe that is normal.
Inevitably, every year, at least one person will ask, well, why are we asking people who identify as white to meet here and people who identify as people of color to meet here? And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. It's because people of color and white people experience racism differently.
Start with a prolonged period of love bombing. Surround them with unconditional love and attention.
Is there any black folks that need water in here? Community love! Community love! This is a public institution.
Gradually, over time, you'll begin to shape the recruit's behavior by granting or withholding this love and attention. After they've bonded, slowly start making your demands upon them. The message being,
We must engage this work. The Council does not propose a one-and-done project. Our work in pursuing these goals will never end.
control their behavior.
Is that you're letting other people do it.
Put your hand down. That's my problem, George. You keep doing these little hand movements or whatever. Like,
Come through.
this is another show. Yeah.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Hold on. The senior administrators, you have to ask for permission and commit some things before boarding the canoe. So can we step back out?
Can you watch your microaggression with your hands and your posture, please? Yeah. Get your hand down, George. Put your hand down. Watch yourself. That's not appropriate. You gotta put your hands down. You know you gotta put your hands down.
Control their thoughts.
That we call these what they are when they're written on documents is alleged hate crimes, because they're targeting students of color and making students of color feel unsafe. And I feel like that is a hate crime.
They're going to say some things that we don't like, and our job is to bring them around or get them out.
Right.
And what I hear us stating that we are working toward is bring them in, train them, and if they don't get it, sanction.
Right.
Control their emotions. Induce guilt.
Racism exists today in both traditional and modern forms. Racism is an institutionalized, multi-layered, multi-level system that distributes unequal power and resources between white people and people of color as socially identified, and disproportionately benefits whites. All members of society are socialized to participate in the system of racism.
I believe that we all have values of social justice. I also believe that we don't all have the skills to deal with that. And in particular, when I think about white men, I think about that we are actually trained to not have those skills.
On behalf of the college, I apologize to each of you for the ways in which you've experienced the effects of these equity gaps. This has happened, it continues to happen, and it must stop.
Control information. Keep them from knowing all the workings of the cult.
Block out any information which is critical of the group.
Encourage members to spy and report on one another.
One came up, stuck the hands on the table, got like this far from my face and started yelling at me. And they were asking, are you going to stop being disrespectful?
Separate the recruit from himself by attacking the self and inducing a mental breakdown disguised as a spiritual awakening. When they start to freak out, have side effects, or hallucinate, tell them they are flushing out the bad stuff inside.
And I think as that happens, the racism that's embedded will surface more and more. One of the other challenges to this work is that we think when we start to talk about it and then it starts to surface, sometimes we think that us talking about it or caring about it or centering it is what's causing the problem. And I would say, no, you finally created a space for all that people have had to sit on and endure to come to the surface.
Make them paranoid about their own bodies or thought processes.
You're battling your sinful nature. Your body is detoxifying.
Tell them that there is a part of their mind they must eliminate in order to find happiness. Claim authority. It can come from a divine source, bogus scientific research.
You need to know that these goals are informed by the literature, by the data that we got from learned from the students.
I don't think those recommendations very well match the data in some cases.
Or special knowledge.
And we also understand that people are all speaking from their own truth. So when you hear from students, when you hear from your peers, what they're saying about their experience is true for them, and that should never be discounted.
I have arrived where I've arrived from a different route. I've arrived there through academic study. I know why racism happens.
We live racism. We don't have to study it to understand it. We live it. And the issue.
But I think enough students saying this person makes me feel unsafe is enough evidence that they make us feel unsafe and can't do their job. We've said that this is anti-blackness. We are the authority. We are the in this room is the authority on anti-black. You know what I mean?
The white administrators in this building are not the authority.
Yeah. And
make up stories about yourself to boost your importance. But don't be stupid about it. Start slowly. A good con man takes a little bit of truth and a lot of lies and pulls the wool over the eyes of the ignorant. Induce trance states and self-hypnosis by practicing thought-stopping rituals and repetitive acts like dancing and chanting.
Students of color in humanities as well as sciences, we are here to support. We want to dismantle anti-blackness campus-wide.
Wait, hey! Ho ho! Red white she's got to go. Hey, hey! Ho ho!
In these trance states, they are more receptive and suggestible. Encourage dependency and conformity, and discourage autonomy and individuality.
Read the email.
For a lot like diversities in the class, so I feel like you should let at least one time let him talk.
So as a person, as people of color, we have to recognize that like we're not black and we do not know the black experience, and so we can't really. We have to recognize that also as people of color, we are also anti-black, and we can't speak to anti-black experience.
Bitch, we fighting for you. Like, come on. You're not. No.
Why don't you speak up? Because somebody keeps interrupting.
your ass down. Yeah. Just turn, y'all. These are the lost ones. The lost ones are rising. Pay no attention.
Have confessionals where people demonize their early lives and only praise their life in the group. Rewrite the past as terrible, even if it was great.
So I hold a lot of different kinds of privilege. The two that are probably the most operative in my teaching are the fact that I'm white and I'm cisgender.
I am cisgender, black, female, and straight.
I am a cisgender, straight woman.
Reality is that our country was founded on the basis of slavery, and there are still so many ingrained social, economic, basically every shared institution that our society has is still so based in racism. So even if you personally don't have a racist sentiment, that doesn't mean you're not contributing to a racist society.
Isolate them from the rest of the world. Make them feel part of a special elite group with an important mission.
I feel a lot of responsibility just by the nature of my positionality in this world to do a lot of emotional labor for all of y'all and the students involved. And it's been really, really draining, but I'm still in this room and still fighting for the people we fought for.
Tighten your group's bond by establishing scapegoats and enemies. Demonize outsiders as less than human, biased, corrupt, or conspiring against the group. Develop an us versus them mentality. Fighting resistance. Tell them their critical thoughts are evidence that they have committed crimes against the group. Start investigating them and make up crimes. Indoctrinate with fear.
Fearful for their lives, began retreating towards the library and ultimately ended up in the Trans and Queer Center Unity Lounge trying to stay safe.
When our parents are calling, addressing issues, saying there are racist situations or confrontations going on campus, and you guys are deliberately saying this is not happening right now, when you have a good 200 people standing in a room, you're still telling parents and community that this is not happening.
I can't tell you how fast my heart is beating right now. I'm shaking in my boots because I'm worried that something might happen and the cops might be called, and you know who's gonna go to jail? I am.
It's that simple. Now, don't you want to become a cult leader? Don't you want devoted followers who leave their families for you, give their money to you, give their bodies to you, give up their lives for you, and will kill for you?
Meeting it.
Can we eat now?
Alright, meeting commenced. We're done here. Stay tuned, y'all.